My name is Clara Bennett, and I am 36 years old. I've always been the one who holds the rope while pretending it's not burning my hands, the quiet fixer, the one who pays bills, negotiates phone plans, and covers the emergencies that everyone else conveniently forgets. My parents, Lorna and Mark, have been married 40 years this June. My brother Jason is 33, a salesman by day, hobbyist by night, and my sister Livia, 28, is perpetually reinventing herself, bouncing from job to job, a self-declared creative spirit. And me? I'm the adult in the room, or at least that's what everyone expects. Last Sunday, I was in the kitchen, sorting laundry and making coffee, when my phone lit up. A family group chat. I knew immediately it was trouble. Jason had posted a link, the 40th anniversary registry. My eyes widened as I clicked it. A yacht had clearly collided with a luxury mall in cyberspace, and they had registered for everything. A 7-night Mediterranean cruise at $20,580, 2 Rolex Datejusts at $18,600, a gourmet kitchen bundle for $9,200, a full house deep clean and landscaping at $2,300, and a private anniversary dinner at Aurelia with a minimum of $4,000. Balloons, harps, custom napkins, champagne walls, even a professional photographer. I scrolled to the bottom. There it was in shimmering gold letters. Primary sponsor, Clara B. I froze. I didn't sign up for this. I hadn't agreed to any of this. My coffee went cold in my hand. My stomach did that sick little elevator drop thing. I stared at the total, nearly $57,000 in extravagance. And somehow I was footing the bill. Jason pinged me directly. Call the cruise line by noon to put down the deposit. Use your card. We'll sort the rest later. I typed back, you've got the wrong person. The dots flashed back at me, angry. Jason shot back. We all voted. You're the rich one. Don't start. I exhaled, slow and steady. My mind went back through the years, how I had been drafted into this role without a word. The little emergencies at first. Dad's car repair, Mom's reduced hours, Christmas, New Year's. Then the bigger ones. Jason's rent, Livia's dog's vet bills, Mom's prescriptions, all while I patched the Civic, skipped trips with friends, and watched my own emergency fund shrink. I'd kept meticulous spreadsheets. Loans became help. Help became responsibility. Responsibility became expectation. I placed my phone down and walked to the sink. Click. That familiar, small, ominous click in my chest. The start of the loop I always fell into. Pay, resent, apologize, pay again. Only this time I didn't want to start the loop. I opened my banking app, not to pay, but to stare. The numbers felt like weather, threatening clouds hovering over the life I'd worked for. I remembered the W-2s I'd inadvertently left on Mom's table last year, and how Jason had casually figured out my income. It wasn't ignorance, it was calculation. I closed the app. I set the phone face down and whispered to myself, don't react, not yet. Not, but I could feel the first sparks of anger. Cold, deliberate, organizing anger. I realized then that being the primary sponsor hadn't started on Sunday. It started years ago. Small, seemingly innocuous favors, each one turning into expectation, each one morphing into a chain. And now the chain had a glittering, Mediterranean-shaped anchor. I thought about my parents, the soft, sweet voices that said, only if it's not too much trouble. How those words disguised obligation. About the times Mom whispered, we don't want to be a burden, right before asking me for hundreds of dollars. About Jason calling me bank bro, and Livia crying because her brunch card got declined. About the Civic I patched myself, the car repairs I postponed, the trip I canceled, all to cover the invisible leaks in the family budget. I sipped my cold coffee. Dare. Yes, that was what it tasted like. A dare. The dare to break the loop, to set a boundary. I opened the group chat again. Jason, I typed, let's talk later. The screen blinked at me. Jason wouldn't wait. The cruise deposit deadline loomed. No excuses made, his next text read. We know what you make. I closed my eyes. Yes, he knew. He had been keeping score in his own way for years. I put the phone down and breathed. I didn't need to justify myself to anyone, not yet. But the first move had to be mine. I paused the first two automatic payments, the streaming bundle and the extra phone line Jason had sneakily added. Then the third, the automatic transfer to my parents' account, a habit I had maintained for 2 years. I imagined them opening their mail, the absence of money like a small, silent shockwave. I wasn't cruel. I was taking control. This Sunday, nothing exploded. The quiet was a promise and a threat. I could feel the tension coiling in the corners of the kitchen, in the light bouncing off my cold mug. For the first time in years, I wasn't running. I wasn't rescuing. I was standing still. And standing still meant I was finally visible, not just the shadowy fixer everyone expected me to be. The first spark had ignited. The loop could end. The phone buzzed relentlessly after I paused the payments. Jason was first, a string of texts that ranged from incredulous to entitled. Are you serious? We'll lose the suite if you don't pay. Mom will be crushed. I didn't answer. I let the dots spin in the void. My heart thumped in a rhythm I hadn't felt in years, the tight coil of fear and exhilaration. For once, I wasn't the silent sponsor. I was the disruptor. Finally, I answered Jason's call. His voice was clipped, impatient. Clara, deposit, noon. Don't make this hard. I kept my tone calm, measured. You're being dramatic. I'm not paying the deposit. A pause, then, it's for Mom. You always do this. You overthink everything. Can't you just do one thing for once? It's never one thing, I said, finally letting the words cut through the habit of politeness. It's years of everything you and Livia and Mom have expected me to cover. This deposit isn't separate. It's the next link in the chain. The line went silent. I could hear his breathing, fast and shallow. I pictured him pacing around his apartment, phone in hand, trying to negotiate guilt like it was currency. I took a deep breath. I've been clear. I am not the primary sponsor. If you want the cruise, you and Livia figure it out yourselves. You voted. I voted no. Majority doesn't give you access to my account. A laugh, low, incredulous. Wow, you're really going to be this person? Boundaries? At 36? You're going to let Mom down? I'm protecting myself, I said, cold but calm. Mom will survive a dinner without me paying a fortune. She will not survive me burning out and disappearing. I could hear him muttering. He was looking for leverage, a new angle. You're punishing us because you're lonely, he spat. I felt the old shame brush against me, like dust stirred by wind, but I let it pass. I'm not punishing anyone, I said. I'm choosing to be responsible for my own life. You're responsible for yours. There was a beat of silence, a suspended moment in the storm. Then Jason tried the ultimate lever. Bro, sorry, Clara. We saw your W-2. I closed my eyes. You went through my papers? It was on the table. Mom said you wouldn't mind. She's proud. I clenched my teeth. Of course they were proud. Proud that I'd been quietly carrying the family for years. Proud that I could be counted on. Proud that I didn't break. But I was breaking now, and loudly, if only in my own heart. I ended the call and exhaled. The decision had to be tangible. I walked over to the smart lock I had installed for the house years ago. Half the family had codes. Not anymore. I removed Jason and Livia. The codes they knew vanished like vapor. My parents' codes stayed. Their world would still function. Mine would too. Theirs would function, but on my terms. The next hour was a storm. Texts flooded in, frantic, emotional, demanding. Jason, furious. Livia, dramatic. Aunt Sharon, confused and judgmental. Even Mom, gently anxious. I ignored most of it. My focus was on clarity and control. I had to stabilize the immediate crisis before it metastasized into chaos. I emailed the restaurant, shifting our reservation from a private, extravagant room to a modest table for immediate family only. No harps, no balloons, just the people who mattered. The deposit stayed. I wasn't cruel. I was deliberate. Every breath I took felt cinematic, heavy with stakes I'd never articulated before. This was a rebellion dressed in everyday clothing, a paused payment, a changed code, a new plan. But it was revolutionary for me. I spent that night preparing. I printed spreadsheets, double-checked my accounts, recalculated the amounts I had quietly covered over the years. Mom's prescriptions, Dad's phone bills, Jason's lingering loans, Livia's pet expenses. Nearly $32,000 over 5 years, not counting the hours, the calls, the emotional labor. Every yes I had ever given stacked in cold, hard numbers. When I finally sat down, coffee reheated, I felt the weight of decades of expectation pressing against me, but I was ready. I had prepared my argument for tomorrow, my defense, my manifesto. I am not your bank. I am not your doormat. I am Clara Bennett, and I will be treated as such. I glanced at the group chat one last time before bed. The storm was coming, but I had the armor of preparation. The loop had been broken once, and I had every intention of keeping it that way. And for the first time in years, I slept without the gnawing sense of obligation gnawing at my chest. Tomorrow would bring confrontation, yes, but for once I would meet it standing tall, not crouched in the shadows. Saturday morning arrived with the quiet pressure of a held breath. I drove to my parents' house carrying a spare keypad and a printed manual. Mom had a soft, worried expression when she opened the door. Her eyes were puffy from last night's television show marathon, the audience applause in the background somehow echoing the tension I carried in my chest. "Show me," she said softly. I walked her through the smart lock app. Fingerprints, temporary codes, access for specific times. Dad followed along, nodding, clearly relieved by the simplicity. For years, they had trusted me blindly with these small, silent decisions. Now they were learning to manage them themselves. Mom absorbed it like a recipe, careful, deliberate. I handed her the manual with a small smile. We sat at the kitchen table. The light fell across the space in long, human angles, warm but honest. "I know you've done a lot," Mom said quietly, eyes fixed on the rising steam from her tea. "I have," I admitted, keeping my voice even. She hesitated, then looked up. "I didn't know about all of it." I leaned forward. "That's because when I told you, you'd say you didn't want to feel guilty. So I stopped telling you." Her lips parted, small gasps of acknowledgement escaping. The truth hung between us. Quiet, uncomfortable, but necessary. Dad came in from the garage, wiping his hands on a towel. "That thing with the door is fancy. Can I still use a key?" "Yes," I said. "You still have your key." He sat, clearing his throat. "About the dinner," he said, looking at the table. $4,000 for one meal is insane." I nodded. "It's the principle, not the extravagance. You like to feel special. I understand that. I do too. But I've spent years being the family bank. Sometimes I'd like to feel like a daughter and not an ATM." Dad's eyes softened. "Fair," he said, almost whispering. I pulled out a folder. Printed spreadsheets, totals only, no details, just the stark numbers of my years of support. Mom's eyes widened. Dad whistled low. Mom put her hand over her mouth like she was catching her breath. "I'm not asking for repayment," I said. "I'm asking for boundaries." Mom exhaled, slow, soft. Dad nodded. "About time," he said, almost amused. The tension in the room shifted from confrontation to comprehension. At 7, Jason arrived. The code he had relied on didn't work. He knocked, increasingly impatient, until Mom and Dad looked at me. "It's your house," I said. "You can let him in if you want." Mom hesitated, then opened the door. Jason's expression morphed from confusion to fury. "You locked me out without notice?" I stayed seated, calm. "Hi, Jason." He grabbed the folder and scanned it, scoffing. "You're dramatic." "These are transactions, not feelings," I said, voice steady. "Not judgments. Boundaries make me healthier than before. Therapy speak? Maybe try it." He flinched. Mom intervened. "Jason, dinner on Saturday. That's the plan." He looked betrayed. "You're taking his side?" Mom nodded. "I'm taking my anniversary without debt." Jason's eyes darted to me. A new target forming. I stayed in my chair, arms uncrossed, silent. He huffed and left, muttering betrayal under his breath. Livia texted later, dramatic as ever. "Mom deserves princess treatment. This is so sad." I replied simply, "Mom deserves love, not bills." Saturday arrived, crisp and human. I picked up Mom and Dad. Dad wore his suit carefully fitted. Mom a soft blue dress that mirrored her eyes. I brought flowers that didn't look like a funeral bouquet. We ate, we laughed, we shared stories. Dad cried a little, telling the story of how he spilled coffee on Mom at the copy machine. Mom laughed until her eyes sparkled. No harps, no balloon arch. A waiter took a photo with my phone. Mom put it on the fridge the next day. Jason and Livia didn't come. They posted photos on social media with captions about self-care, a world that felt detached from reality. After dinner, we drove past the community center where Mom had volunteered for years. A small concert was in progress. Folding chairs, little paper programs. Mom squeezed my hand during the piano piece. No one asked me for money. I realized then, a quiet epiphany. For once, the world could exist without me paying for it, without me bending under obligation. Sunday was quiet. My kitchen smelled of brewed coffee and soap. I opened my banking app and watched the next month bloom with fewer leaks. Something small had shifted. My yeses had space to breathe. Monday, Dad called. Not for a bill, not for guidance, just curiosity. Can you show me how to set up an automatic transfer for Mom's pharmacy account? Tuesday, Mom sent a list. Streaming, phone, internet. She signed it with a heart. Boundaries were becoming habit, even in their small gestures. Wednesday, Livia called, tearful over a rent increase. Mom said yes to her temporary move. But Mom also asked, "Is that okay?" "It's not my house," I said. "I'm not paying for the move." She paused. "Okay, I won't." Thursday, Jason sent a message that could have been explosive. Instead, I ignored it. I had a second job now, a small night delivery to cover extra expenses. I didn't respond. He would feel responsibility in a way he had never understood before. By the following week, the group chat returned to its normal rhythms, pretending everything was fine because everything wasn't actively burning. But something had shifted. A small space where my yes used to live had opened. It wasn't empty, it was mine. And for the first time in years, I felt lighter. The week after the dinner felt surreal. The apartment was quiet, only the hum of the refrigerator and the soft tapping of my keyboard filling the space. For once, the invisible weight of my family's expectations wasn't pressing down on my shoulders. I could breathe, truly breathe. I sat with my thoughts, revisiting every moment that had led to this quiet revolution. The years of covering bills, fielding emergencies, and absorbing guilt. It wasn't just money, it was control, subtly wielded by love and obligation. I realized the chain of obligation had never been my fault. It had been a cycle, quietly taught, reinforced, and expected. Mom texted me that morning. "Thank you for last night. I didn't realize how much you've carried. I love you." I stared at the words. A lump rose in my throat. Not shame, not anger, but something new, acknowledgement. She had seen me, finally, and she had understood. Jason and Livia were slower to respond. Their messages oscillated between passive-aggressive jabs and tentative apologies. I didn't engage. I didn't need to. Their growth, if it came, would be theirs alone to realize. My job wasn't to rescue them anymore. For the first time, I considered myself in my own narrative, not as the support system, not as the fixer, not as the family bank, but as Clara Bennett, a woman with choices, limits, and a voice that mattered. The thought was dizzying, terrifying, and liberating all at once. I walked through the city streets that evening, autumn air crisp against my skin. The lights of shop windows reflected in puddles left from the morning rain. Each step felt intentional, unhurried. It was a small rebellion to move through the world without the invisible weight of everyone else's expectations tethering me. I thought of my relationship with Evan. Our time apart had been a strange, quiet reckoning, each of us wrestling with our own demons. Yet the clarity I had gained with my family gave me perspective. If I couldn't assert boundaries with those I loved most, I couldn't expect to do so with him or anyone else. By the weekend, the house was calm. Mom had adopted new routines, Dad was learning independence in small, deliberate steps, and my siblings were left to navigate the consequences of their choices. The group chat no longer felt like a storm warning. It was a reflection of realigned boundaries. I sat at my kitchen table one evening, a notebook open, pen in hand. I wrote down lessons I had learned. Yes isn't infinite. Every yes carries a cost. Boundaries are love, not rejection. Protecting yourself doesn't diminish care for others. Acknowledgement matters. Recognition of effort can heal years of unspoken resentment. Responsibility is personal. I cannot outsource my life to anyone, even family. Each line felt like a brick removed from the wall I'd been building around myself for decades. With every word, I felt lighter, freer. Later, I called Mom, just to talk. No requests, no transactions, no emergencies. Our conversation wandered through laughter, stories, and quiet reminiscences. I realized something profound. I could love them fully without sacrificing my own stability. That had been the hidden truth all along. Evan and I met later that week. we talked openly, honestly, about boundaries, expectations, and the lives we wanted to build together. I felt steadier, firmer in my convictions, able to hold space for him and for myself without slipping into old patterns. The lessons from my family had become tools for every relationship I would carry forward. The sun set behind the skyline, casting long, warm shadows across the streets. For the first time in years, I felt that quiet thrill of autonomy, the kind that comes not from rebellion, but from clarity. I had survived the storm of obligation and emerged with my integrity intact. The past hadn't vanished. Jason and Livia's frustrations lingered, their sense of entitlement unshaken, but I had learned the most vital lesson. I was no longer defined by what I carried for others. I was defined by what I chose to carry for myself, and that choice was mine and mine alone. As night fell, I closed my notebook, a smile tugging at my lips. The horizon wasn't perfect, and the storms would come again, but I had found my anchor, and for the first time, I didn't feel the need to apologize for it. Weeks passed. The rhythm of life settled into something unfamiliar but comforting. Mom and Dad adapted beautifully to their new routines. Jason and Livia's tantrums faded, replaced by quiet grudges, or perhaps, in time, lessons learned. The group chat had become a neutral zone, messages mostly mundane, punctuated by occasional emojis rather than demands or silent accusations. I, too, had changed. Clara Bennett, the woman who once carried the invisible weight of an entire family, was no longer defined by obligation. I felt grounded, my presence in my own life undeniable. Each day I woke with awareness of what I could give and what I must keep for myself. That distinction was liberating. Evan and I spent more time together, slowly rebuilding trust and connection. We planned small trips, cooking nights, long walks, unhurried conversations, moments that felt intimate, private, and mutual. I realized that the lessons I had learned navigating my family dynamics weren't just for survival. They were tools for creating a healthy, balanced partnership. One afternoon, I visited Mom at her volunteer center. She had organized a small recital for the children in the community, a simple event, but full of warmth and laughter. She caught my eye and smiled, a smile free of worry, free of expectation. For a fleeting moment, I felt the quiet joy of witnessing her happiness, untainted by obligation or guilt. Later, back at my apartment, I opened my notebook. The pages were filled with reflections, lessons, and small triumphs. I added a final line. Love is not measured by what you sacrifice, but by what you give willingly. That night, I called Mom and Dad. I'm proud of us, I said, surprising myself with the softness in my voice. Mom laughed, a light, melodic sound. We're proud of you too, Clara, she said. You taught us how to let go and still care. Evan joined me at the kitchen table later. We talked about future plans, shared hopes, and quiet dreams. There was laughter, understanding, and the kind of peace that comes from seeing your own reflection clearly, flawed, strong, resilient. And though the world outside continued its relentless pace, my life had found a new cadence. Boundaries had been drawn, respect had been earned, and love, real, unburdened love, had room to grow. I looked out the window at the city lights flickering against the night sky. For the first time in decades, I felt that subtle, profound thrill of control over my own life. The storms would come again, challenges would arise, and family dynamics would inevitably shift. But I had learned to navigate them, to hold myself first, and to protect the fragile yet fierce space I had claimed. Clara Bennett, 34, felt whole, not because life was perfect, but because she had chosen herself. And in that choice, she had found freedom, balance, and a love that was no longer weighed down by obligation, guilt, or expectation. The horizon remained vast, uncertain, and full of possibilities. And for the first time, I didn't feel fear. I felt readiness.